Now, needless to say, and as Marcus mentioned, companies that had factories in Kaesong are anxiously hoping for a resumption in business activities there. Yet, Pyongyang's most recent provocation and Washington's hardline stance under the new Trump administration has put the future of the industrial park in bleak weather, if I may. South Korean firms that once operated out of Kaesong are still hoping the complex will be reopened, something that looks increasingly difficult. Especially as the Trump administration in the US looks to be taking a hardline stance against Pyongyang. On February 7th, South Carolina Republican Representative Joe Wilson denounced North Korea's development of intercontinental ballistic missiles and introduced a resolution that calls for the swift deployment of the US missile defense system THAAD to South Korea. The resolution is seen as an attempt to further pressure the North and indicate the THAAD battery will be deployed as planned. Meanwhile, on the 12th, North Korea test-fired what it described as a medium to intermediate-range ballistic missile, again stirring up tensions on the peninsula. News of the test broke while US President Donald Trump was hosting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Florida. The two leaders immediately condemned the launch.
今般の北朝鮮のミサイル発射は断じて容認できません。北朝鮮は国連決議を完全に遵守すべきです。
I just want everybody to understand and fully know that the United States of America stands behind Japan, its great ally, 100%.
Global media outlets quickly pushed out reports of the missile test, with many speculating that the latest launch could be to gauge the new Trump administration's response. America's strong commitment to tight sanctions on North Korea and Pyongyang's continued provocations for now are likely to add another layer of uncertainty to the reopening of the Kaesong industrial complex. Keeping in mind the Trump administration's hardline stance against North Korea, what are the chances of that reality affecting the resumption of operations at Kaesong? Frank?
Well, I'm not sure that Trump has a policy yet. One of the things that Jim Mattis said when he came here, he said this on the plane, he said, I'm coming to listen. He's coming to listen to the leaders here in South Korea. Hopefully, the Trump administration will take another look at this. The policy that has been, carried out in the past 7 years at least has not succeeded. There needs to be another policy put in place. And if that involves Kim Jong-un having hamburgers with Donald Trump, I'm all for that. That does seem somewhat unlikely right now. I think it'll be several months before we can even talk about negotiations, between the U.S. and North Korea. There's the military exercises coming up in March, the large-scale U.S.-South Korea military drills that happen every year. Those kind of raised the tension. You had this missile test. So you have to wait a couple months before things calm down again, and also give the Trump administration a chance to formulate its own policy.
I'm a bit optimistic when I see his reaction after the missile test. He was very restrained. We know Trump, he gets angry for very little things, and he just made a very short statement saying he was behind Japan, but there was no insult on the North Korean leader, there was no bluster. It was pretty moderate, and I find it encouraging, and maybe gives me hope that he will approach this issue maybe in a more balanced way.
Both Fred and Frank have mentioned this, but yes, last week North Korea launched a ballistic missile. What do you think, Marcus, was the intention of that missile test?
Well, I think it was expected that North Korea would do something like that, either after the inauguration of Donald Trump, or like they ended up doing on the occasion of Donald Trump meeting Shinzo Abe of Japan. You should see it as a sort of test of how the U.S. is going to respond.
So Pyongyang was testing the waters? Yeah,
a little bit. I think you could say that. And I think the missile launch was, by some people, considered the milder of the tests. Some people were talking about maybe seeing another nuclear test happening soon after Donald Trump took office. That didn't happen. It was a missile test.
I want to contradict Marcus a little bit here. A lot of us, when North Korea does something, a lot of people in the international community say it was because of us, it was aimed at us. North Korea is engaged in developing missiles that can reach other countries in the world and reach the United States. It could be on its own time frame, where, okay, it's time for a test, we've mastered this technology. They've said that even this test was a different type of submarine-launched ballistic missile with an increased range, so there was technical experimentation going on with this particular test.
But the timing, if you look back and you see exactly the dates and the timing of the missile tests, and they're either related, it seems, to national holidays in North Korea or to events taking place abroad. I don't think it's a coincidence that they tested the missile right when Donald Trump was meeting Shinzo Abe, the two major enemies of the North Korean state.
Okay, going back to Kaesong then, what are the chances of a resumption in operations there in the near future?
I think it's possible. I mean, I'm surprised to see that now we might have an election in South Korea pretty soon, and the candidates are saying that they're discussing it, the reopening of Kaesong, and the fact that China is not really implementing the UN sanctions makes sense to say, well, anyway, we cannot struggle the regime and cut all sorts of funding, so why not try to cooperate and reopen Kaesong? I think there is a possibility.
I think it's really important, though, if they do reopen Kaesong, that at least South Korea says, okay, this isn't going to be politically linked to any other behavior of North Korea. If North Korea tests a nuclear missile, Kaesong is going to keep operation. If there's some other disagreement between North and South Korea, something in the West Sea, whatever it might be, Kaesong is not going to be affected. That was the original, purpose of the Kaesong Industrial Complex, and the design of the Kaesong Industrial Complex was to remain outside of the political sphere and not be used for political purposes like it was when it was shut down just more than a year ago.
Right. Ultimately, this might be a tough question, but what kind of engagement do you believe would be a peaceful way of interacting with North Korea?
I'm a total sunshiner, so I believe in a broad range of engagement with North Korea. A lot of other engagement with North Korea that we don't see too much in the press, cultural engagement, religious engagement with North Korea, hasn't been enabled by the Ministry of Unification and President Park Geun-hye for the past I think at least couple of years. I would like to see that engagement enabled. Any type of engagement with North Korea enabled is going to bring the two Koreas together and bring North Korea more likely into the international community and less likely to pursue missile and nuclear development.
I think since money is obviously a problem, I think any kind of engagement that involves little money, as you mentioned, education, culture, history. Now, in the past, like North and South Korean linguists used to agree to work on a common dictionary. All these kind of exchanges, I think, are good. We should send North Korean students abroad. All kind of exchanges that somehow, in the long run, will undermine the official propaganda, will undermine the legitimacy of North Korean regime.
February 18th marks the second of the 24 seasonal divisions according to the lunar calendar. The second seasonal phase is known as Usu, which describes the snow melting and transforming into rain and water. In other words, Usu signals the end of the freezing cold weather. Let's hope that the currently frozen inter-Korean ties will soon mark their period of Usu. Thank you for being with us.